It brought up a quote in my head from a book that talks about how success, you just mentioned it, success is really about all of us. Like you cannot be successful in a bubble. Like
Mm,
achievement, talent, all that kind of stuff is great, but true success always comes in community. And it
mm,
always comes when what you just said, which I would love to jump into, is how do you see the needs and help people, other people succeed, right? And then as your place in a studio, as a producer, as an engineer, you're constantly working with other people. Like you're not, like you said, you're not in a bubble. You're not there creating music for yourself. You might be, but like your ultimate goal is to make other people sound good, and
right.
then have other people like look at you and say, "Hey, I have a vision or have a sound. Can you make this happen?" And that's a lot that has nothing to do with music. Tell me about how you have to work with the interpersonal, psychological communication. Like there is so much that you do inside that studio that has nothing to do with your musical or even your technical skill. So talk a little bit about that.
Man, this is
I,
story of
I
my life
knew
right here. This
I,
is
I knew it. I felt like there was
it's
something
the
bubbling
main
under the
point.
surface.
Um, this is and and the way you worded it was correct because you can be dope, you know. Like I grew up playing the keyboard in church, watching all the crazy musicians play. There's one musician around my way growing up that is amazing, but he has no people skills.
Ooh.
So, but I mean, he is when you if you heard him play, you know, if I dropped his name, people probably already know what I'm talking. But if you heard his name, he's amazing. But because he doesn't have any people skills, he doesn't get the phone calls that you think he should get, you know, for that very reason. It's the hardest thing as a creative in any industry. And I talked about this recently on the most recent video I put up, was that it's hard for us to be the service providers to creatives to take something that exists in your head that's really not manifested, and we have to manifest what's in your head. You know, it's like it's not even in my head, it's your idea. You have so the first thing I can say is, number one, you got to have patience. If you don't have patience, you might as well stop, because
Okay, another career.
it's a service based industry.
This is
If you're
not the
in a
career for you if you were like, yeah, I hear
yeah,
you, man.
it's a service. There's a couple of key things. I mean, there's so many variables, but there are a couple of key things that I stick by. Number one is always be patient. It's not your idea, it's not your song. That's number two. So it's basically what they want at the end of the day. But you have to develop some communication skills. You have to at least know to ask certain questions. Hey, what really do you want? What type of emotions are you trying to invoke? Do you have any examples, any references that I can reference if I never worked on this type of song before? You know, if I never worked on a jazz record before and like I'm used to doing hip hop, you know, please give me an example what you want, or else your song is going to come out sounding like a trap. You know, it's the you have to ask certain questions um that would help people, because they don't know. And if it's an idea that somebody has, you know, think of an idea you have an idea, but you really don't know what that idea is. You don't know how that's going to come into fruition. So imagine trying to get an idea out of somebody else and they're not even sure about it. So it's more so, it's almost like being a therapist, like a creative therapist, in a sense. Like
Wow.
let's get you to the point that we can come up with some type of foundation to where we can move forward on the idea that you have. So for me, that comes in a lot of different ways. You know, please send me an example of what you want, or just what type of music do you listen to? Who's your favorite artist? You know, things like that. So I can listen to that stuff. So we have some type of foundation. Then create drafts and create, like, you know, ideas for the person, like three or four or five different ideas. Like, but don't, you know, don't spend too much time on them, but just, you know, hey, something like this or something like this or something like this. Okay, that one, cool. So do you like something like this? You know, and you just keep collaborating and building. But you have to have patience. You have to know to ask the right questions, or questions that will at least guide them to the idea that they have in their head. And yeah, you have to be a servant. And coming from church, that sounds so cliche-ish,
No, it's not at all. It's so like you're
but
saying it right now that the thing I say about cliches is that there's a reason it's a cliche. It's a reason
It's
that
a,
it's because it is
right.
so true that we say it all the
Yeah,
time
it's
because
but
it's true.
it's amazing though. But even in that, even which I'm not gonna say it, but with a lot of faith believers, if you were to actually believe and understand that stuff, you'd be a lot better off because knowing that knowing that I am a servant and not just in a spiritual aspect or anything like that, knowing I'm a servant to people in the business I have and in the industry that I'm in, there's a reason to why people want to work with me or I will, or are inquiring about me in some shape or form is because um people will never forget how you make them feel. So it doesn't matter about your resume. um you can work with the dopest person in the world, but if you treated somebody like trash when they worked with you, like that's it. You know what I'm saying? So it's like being a servant, knowing it's not your music, it's their music. If you say lightning and we say thunder and I say thunder, lightning's in the song. That's it. You know what I mean? It's not an argument here. You know, but it's like knowing you're in a service based industry, knowing you're there to help somebody, that takes you a very long way. I forgot what the question was, but
No,
God
you. I
knows
know.
I
Please,
hope
I
I
was
answered it.
not about to stop you. This is gold, sir. This is gold,
Uh,
Keith. Because again, I want to park there because here's the thing I was going to mention that even as you talked about that heart of service, I was going to ask you really kind of like to give because I think what the reason we say it's cliche is because we forget how that actually operates in the natural. Okay, let's just be spiritual
mhm,
for now, right? So we talk
right.
about like, the last shall be first, the first shall be last. God says, if you really want to be great, be a servant, right?
Mhm.
So we know those as Christians, that's our heart. Now you just said it a little earlier. If people really understood that, their businesses would be better, their creative lives would be better. So let me
Absolutely.
ask you to kind of like do this then. Let's kind of like do this to really paint the picture for somebody who still thinks it's about the gear or it's about the dope beats or it's about,
Yeah.
I know this person who still thinks that. Can you think of an example where that service mentality, where the fact that you put somebody first and you kind of saw like this is how this principle helped me get X or Y. I know you might have to think a little bit about this, but I just want to like really paint the picture for somebody. Like when
Yeah.
you operate in this mentality, this is what can happen.
Yeah. Yeah. So let me think. I got a couple like little examples right off the top of my head, but I want to really think. So okay, yeah. So okay, cool. So I have a couple. So I have one little one, and then I got another one.
Cool.
So one of them was I remember this artist had hit me up, who's a local artist, and I need this. Long story short, just had a bad experience with another production team, but she needed something done by the end of the day. And it was kind of like a rush type thing. Hit me up, and I was like, you know what? Come on, let's do it. I got you, no problem. But it was like one of the biggest headaches I ever had in the world. I mean, it was rough. But because I was patience. I didn't act out. I just treated her as if I treated her as if she was the biggest client, my biggest client in the world. But God knows, like afterwards, I'm talking to my wife. Well, she was my girlfriend at the time. I'm talking to her like, yo, this lady right here, she got me hot. Like I was heated. Um, Long story short, though, she became one of the biggest supporters that I ever had. She actually came to my wedding, which was
Wow.
2 hours out the way, and she was just like, "No, I want to support you." So that was just dope. That was just a principle. Is like, you don't know who you're entertaining, you don't know who you're actually working with, so treat everybody the same. The other one was there's a gentleman, he goes by the name of Busy Works Beats. He's one of the online leaders for, especially with a program called FL Studio. So those who don't know, it's a program, a digital audio workstation that allows you to make music. He's kind of one of the forerunners for that program in particular as a producer online. Come to find out, He lives 10 minutes from me. So
Okay.
I really wanted to connect with him, and I just really wanted to serve. Like, yo, how can I help you? And yeah, like, I love what you're doing. Like, you've impacted me, you've impacted the way how I work, you've impacted so many people. I just want to be a blessing and all of that. One thing just led to another, built this amazing relationship, and now I have I couldn't have been able to walk through the doors that I've been able to walk through, if it wasn't for him, and so it's just amazing what happens when you might think it's all the gear, you might think it's what you bring, especially when you're around other people who are like-minded as you. It's I mean, even growing up being a musician, everybody's a musician in the room, everybody's about to shed or something like that, and you think it's about the chops, you think it's about kind of like what all of the stuff that you think is what other people are looking at. It might just be the fact that you shook everybody's hand when you walked in. It might just it's never the thing you really think it is. And that's one of the biggest things I can say. I got gear. I love gear. I gear shop more than anything in life. I feel like it's becoming an idol. I need to take that to the Lord.
Oh no.
I take that to the Lord. But
Oh boy, you like got the
but
golden set, the golden cap, you got the golden compressor, you
yeah,
got you got
you
you
got the
got
yeah, I
you
got
got
the
a
gold.
mic up there, you got everybody's like bowing down to him. But
That's right. I just brought a brand new mic, but I'm like, oh Jesus, did you see the new one that just came out with? I like so it's
but
like, it's getting bad. But it's like you think, like even in the studio, like you would think it's the gear and stuff like that. Some people are impressed by that stuff. And I don't buy, gear to impress people, but some people are impressed by it. But people are impressed with how they're treated and what you do with the expectation that they have of you.